Good afternoon, members. I think we're still at that time. The Organizational Development Standing Committee of the Richmond City Council will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, if you would read our chamber evacuation announcement and public speaker guidelines.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the former Public Safety Building parking lot. Abled persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Members of the public wishing to speak during public hearings are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before this committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and further disciplinary action as necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of City Council for a period of 6 months. And Madam Chair, for the record, all members of the committee are in attendance with the exception of Member Lynch. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's move on to handle any proposed amendments for this afternoon's agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, the proposed amendments to tonight's agenda is as follows. Item 2, Resolution 2025 R010, and consideration of appointments to the Civilian Review Board will be continued to the Monday, May 5th Organizational Development Standing Committee meeting. If there are no objections to that, is there a motion? The committee is voting on the agenda amendments as presented. Mr. Breton.
Aye.
Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
Ms. Jones. Ms. Robertson. Ms. Trammell.
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan.
Aye.
And Chair Newbill.
Aye.
That motion was approved.
Thank you. I believe the minutes are really something we can take care of very quickly, if you would.
Yes, the minutes to be approved are for the March 3rd, 2025 Organizational Development Standing Committee meeting held at 4 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, then those meeting minutes will stand approved as presented.
Thank you,
those minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. With that, we'll move on to the presentations and reports for today. And so would like to invite our Director of Public Utility. Okay, couldn't see you behind the chair, Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris, up relative to the HNTB final report.
Madam President and members of council, it's my pleasure to introduce Robert Page. He's going to be going over the final report from HNTB.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. And so we'll get started with our after action assessment report of the events in early January. So as we developed the report, we put it into the following outline. Well, we had an introduction and the scope of the investigation process updates, the causes of failure, the investigation findings, recommendations, and corrective actions in progress. Apologies. Better? And as I go through this report, you'll see that many of the slides are very similar to the slides that I presented the last time I was in front of the council. And so we'll go through that. Just as a reminder, the scope of our investigation was review the events that occurred on January 6th that led to the water treatment plant failure, determine the root cause of the event through systemic breakdown of contributing factors, and provide recommendations for improvement. So as we've continued the investigation to date, we had those original 14 staff interviews conducted on site in early January. We conducted a number of additional interviews since March 3rd, including with Bob Steidel, Matthew Longshore, George Hayes, Ricky Hatfield, Sabrina Joy Hogg, the eMERGE system staff who runs the SCADA system at the treatment plant, Jeff Gray, Stephen Willoughby, and Mayor Danny Avila. We also coordinated with Henrico County Utilities And then as a reminder, we did request to talk with former Director April Bingham, and those details of that are listed there, where the city staff contacted her and she declined, and our information was provided to her. We also coordinated with Haggerty Consulting's incident response assessment improvement plan and continued to review documents and records provided by DPU. Throughout this entire process, we've requested numerous documents from DPU, and they provided all of those documents unredacted to us. So jumping ahead to the causes of failure, the root cause of the failure was the failure of the transfer switch in switchgear 6. With the loss of power and the failure of the electrical system to transfer to the secondary source of power, the UPS system failed to close those filter effluent valves. With the water continuing to flow through the filters, the basement began to flood. The standby pumps were not prepared in advance, and once they were started, they were not able to keep up with the flow rate coming through the filters. That flooding then damaged pumps and critical electrical equipment in the basement, and that equipment failure led to the complete water treatment plant outage for nearly 36 hours, resulting in the boil water advisory. And the failure was compounded by a lack of planning, a lack of standard and emergency procedures, and poor communications throughout the event. So as we go through our investigation findings and recommendations, these are similar to last month, where we'll talk through the water treatment plant basement flooding and dewatering, storm preparation, power systems, SCADA systems, staffing, training, operating procedures, asset management and maintenance, and communication. So like I indicated when I started the presentation, a lot of these slides are very similar to what was presented previously. You'll see that a lot of the slides have gray text, which those were presented last month. And then there's bold text, which shows the new findings and recommendations that we found since the last time we presented to the council. So as far as the basement flooding and dewatering, we didn't find any additional information since I was last here. As far as the storm preparation, we found that there were several preparatory calls held about the incoming winter storm posted by the city and the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. The power outage at the treatment plant was not discussed. However, a lot of those calls were in preparation of the storm, not necessarily during the storm event itself. One recommendation that we had was to implement seasonal risk assessment, involve all the treatment plant staff to identify potential risks to assets based on seasonal conditions and remind them of emergency procedures. For the power systems, we found that the existing UPS units were undersized and had additional loads placed on them in addition to the previous findings, but we didn't have any additional recommendations. So as a reminder of the backup power system and how the electrical system works at the plant, the code requires the treatment plant facilities to have two power sources, a primary and a backup, which the Richmond water treatment plant has those two feeds from Dominion Energy that service the primary and backup. The backup generators are a tertiary and manual power supply source. So they're intended to be used only when both power feeds are out. So since main feeder 2 still had power, that first step was to transfer power to that feed that failed with the electrical gear. So some new findings that we had on the SCADA systems. There were delays in restoring the SCADA system. These were caused by the hard shutdown of the SCADA system once the UPS units had drained. The components of the control panels failed once power was restored. And then there were instances of trip breakers as equipment was being dried out. So in addition to our previous recommendations, we had an additional recommendation to develop a standard operating procedure for operators to manually shut down the SCADA system if a failure appears imminent to safeguard against that hard shutdown that occurred previously. Staffing, we had many of the findings are the same, but one item that we added was that many treatment plant staff worked 16 plus hours at a time in response to the crisis. And so our recommendation would be to review and reevaluate the organizational structure of operations and maintenance staff at the treatment plant, and then to develop an emergency staffing plan to provide adequate relief for responding leadership and staff. As far as the training and operating procedures, we found that there was minimal training and development for the managerial staff. And so therefore, we recommended implement reoccurring formal training for treatment plant management staff, including emergency response. And then as far as asset management and maintenance, we found delays in implementation of capital projects identified in planning efforts. So we had a few additional recommendations for this bullet. Was to evaluate the existing capital improvement plan, the master plan, and other planning efforts, develop a plan to reprioritize the implementation of those projects, perform a holistic review of planning, engineering, and procurement processes for capital projects, identify the inefficiencies and develop a corrective action plan, and restructure the preventative maintenance schedule to reduce overlap for the same set of assets. For communication, we had the previous bullets, then we found several instances of miscommunication or misinformation. We also found that the city officials were not made aware of the severity of the events until approximately 1 p.m. So an additional recommendation would be to develop a crisis communication plan and establish clear protocols for communicating with staff and internal stakeholders, ensuring staff alignment with DPU response. Develop clear protocols for communicating with external stakeholders, ensure those external parties, the wholesale customers and regulatory agencies are notified immediately and updated regularly, and have regular training of relevant staff on crisis communication plan. So throughout this process, we've learned that DPU has made many corrective actions that are in progress. So summer mode is now the normal operating mode. The operations staff have been trained in switchgear operation and transitioning the water treatment plant to generator power. Maintenance staff, mechanics, and electricians will be on site if the emergency operations center is activated. Organization charts for operations and maintenance staff are currently undergoing revisions. The generator automatic transfer switch is part of a current capital project. DPU has engaged another consultant to replace the undersized UPS units. They've worked on the installation of visual indicators for those filter effluent valves so they can see if those are open or closed. And then there's remote open close switches for the filter effluent valves are also underway so that they can make sure that those are operated. DPU has ensured all filter valve actuators are rated as watertight, and they're going through a reprioritization of the projects in the CIP. So with that, that's what we found. And those were the events that happened on January 6th. Questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Members, do we have any questions at this time? Councilmember Abubakar?
Thank you. And this may be a question more for Interim CA Joy Hogg, but related to the components of the after action report regarding communications findings, when will we be getting the report from Haggerty on their assessment of the communications findings? And how do these two sort of overlap?
Haggerty is doing, their scope of work is to assess how we handle the emergency situation. I don't recall exactly when that deadline is. Do you know? May 9th. There you go. But so there will be some overlap, but it's not necessarily about the water treatment plant, but about the city's response to it. So some of what he just said will be in there. But Haggerty is also helping us plan for any other future emergencies that may happen. Their scope is broader.
Okay, and then we'll do a
Yes.
report on that. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
because we could have not just a water crisis, we could have, an active shooter, we could have, something blow up. So we
Sure.
want to be able to make sure that we are prepared for any emergency, and especially emergencies that occur in our city. And so that includes disaster planning. If we have to move people out of the city, where do we house them? So their scope is a lot bigger, and it's more about our ongoing operations and how do we react.
But this is obviously going to inform some of their work.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Might I just ask if with the corrective action plan that's delineated here, do we have the matrix that highlights each of the items?
So to speak to that, I am developing it. I'm hoping to get it out to you guys this week. But I do have it broken down, like we discussed before, from the preliminary, interim, and then final. Just been catching up with a lot of stuff in the interim, and I hope to get that to you probably within the next couple of days.
Okay, and it'll have the timeline for implementation costs, all those associated staff.
So,
Separate.
timeframe, relative, we'll give you approximations on those, but, general costs, those won't be done because some of it requires some preliminary engineering development and then long-term costs. So those won't be in there, but schedule will definitely be in there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Gibson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated seeing some of the documentation of the actual communications in this final version. And I was wondering, I see, the communication that is included is post event, and I'm wondering why this document does not include any communications that occurred leading up to the event on January 6th.
I'm sorry, but I'm a little unclear as to, are you talking about the communication that was held between who? Apologies,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand what you're asking.
I understand. So, I mean, look, I think that there, citizens are wondering how we got here, right? And so the report includes some of the emails between VDH and the city and DPU. I see some communications, dated January 14th. There was some other communications dated in February that kind of provided some clarity around the timeline. But I'm wondering about communications that led up to the event to kind of hone in on some of the perhaps more systemic issues or things that got us to this point. I was wondering why pre-event communications were not in the document.
I guess primarily because, we were looking at what happened post January 6th, not necessarily pre-January 6th. And I mean, I guess one of those things is, if we were to open that can of worms, we could be chasing those emails and that documentation forever. I guess I'm still a little unclear as to how far back you're asking about, because I mean, I think what you're asking for are things that we could be looking at years and years of communication that had occurred. We were primarily trying to figure out why January 6th happened and what caused the water treatment plant outage, and not necessarily what the systemic nature of that is. So that was the focus of our investigation, not necessarily trying to figure out what had happened previously.
Thank you. So, so to be clear, to get to the question as to why January 6th happened, wasn't necessary to look at any of the email communications leading up to that? Is that?
I mean, I think, I don't know what we would have been looking for. It would be really hard to pinpoint and ask for specific communications as to what led up to January 6th. The event that failed, the mechanical equipment that failed could have tested fine the day before and then just failed that day. So, to try and go back historically and look through that communication, that could take decades to try and understand what led to that point. I think it's more to focus on, what can we do to move forward? What can we do to correct this? And it sounds like DPU and the leadership is taking many of those steps already that we've recommended and started to implement. And so, I think it'd be a very long road to try and figure out what led to the events on January 6th. Not to say that somebody couldn't, but it'd be in some ways trying to find a needle in the haystack, I think, for specific communications.
Thank you. My other question might be best answered by Ms. Joy Hogg regarding the costs for the fix. Mayor Vula had said that it was $5 million, and I'm wondering when we will get even just a rough breakdown of how that $5 million was spent.
So I'm not even going to try, I'm sorry, Sabrina Joy Hogg, interim CAO, to try and detail that out. Scott Morris will answer that.
So we do have a breakdown right now of one cost we've incurred to date. Obviously, I think when the mayor was referencing the $5 million, we were anticipating those additional costs to come to fruition. We just did a large majority of the valve actuators that's mentioned on that presentation, making sure those indicators are there, but also doing the replacements. Still have a couple of little small restoration projects we have at the facility. I'm hoping to have a more firm grasp on the final costs on the interim implementation, probably mid-month, later in this month. And then we'll circulate that to council members so you can see those actual costs to date. Those won't include some long-term costs because there's a couple of projects that are looming that we move forward. So there's going to be some additional costs beyond that, but it'll cover the vast majority of those costs.
Thank you. So I would love to have the opportunity to discuss that as a body when that documentation is ready, perhaps either in GovOps or if there's another space that would be open to that too. And it would also be helpful to understand what sources paid for those, those costs so that we understand, where the money came from as well.
Most certainly. Anytime you guys want us to speak to it, we'll be able to available.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Burton.
I am interested to know, probably from Chief Morris, about the mechanisms by which we will be able to know how the evaluation of existing CIP, master plan, and planning efforts, and the plan to prioritize these projects, just moving forward, the mechanism by which we'll know that the planning process is being done well, the responsible choices are being made, cost-effective choices, with an eye towards the proper engineering decisions and priorities. So how are we going to have that confidence moving forward? Is it trusting your expertise? Is it some type of outside oversight? Like what do we have? What is our plan for understanding the quality of the forward planning process for investments?
Yeah, I think this is an ongoing process, both for what the council wants to see moving forward. I think there's an additional increase in level of transparency associated with these processes. I think the best path forward from my vision is to demonstrate that we are doing these plans. We're going through updating the master plan. We're going through updating these ERPs, the emergency operating procedures, and doing a report out function to council members. More so, we could probably do this through government operations or OD, whatever your guys' preference is. But obviously, we're going to add that additional layer of transparency just so you can see that these activities are being done now and not in a back room somewhere and trusting that they're being done. But I'm happy to provide that nexus, to provide that report out, and whatever frequency that the council wants. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Couple of questions I have. Was this water crisis, this treatment plant facility emergency, something based on this report, am I to conclude that this was a human error?
I think ultimately it was a combination of a mechanical error and a human error.
I'm having a difficult time hearing you.
Can you hear me okay now?
Try it again.
Can you hear me?
I think so.
Sorry, I'm trying to move the mic to where it works. It's not. How's this? Better?
Okay.
So it was a mechanical error that was compounded by a human failure. So the mechanical equipment failed.
Okay, so let's stop there.
Mhm.
The mechanical equipment that failed, is that due to the equipment itself not being at the level of operational proficiency that it was supposed to be at?
Not necessarily that piece of equipment itself. The piece that failed is a piece of an electrical component that should have automatically transferred the feed from the one that went out of power to the other one. So some of the other things that failed, like the filter effluent valves, those were things that should have been properly sized for the uninterruptible power supply. So that's something that was preventable by for sure, was the filter effluent valves not closing, which led to the flooding. So
Okay.
the original failure.
Trying to mechanically, and I'm probably not really the best. It's important that to me that I know whether or not this is a human error or whether this is a mechanical error that was not due to lack of human performing as they should, but faulty of a piece of equipment. I mean, if the electricity had not gone out, would we have had a failure, a mechanical system failure at the water treatment plant?
No.
Okay, fine. All right. So who caused the electrical problem?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you asked.
Okay, who caused the electrical problem?
The storm.
Yeah, you said if we did not have the electrical disconnect, right, we would have not had this problem, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that tells me that the mechanical system that we have in our water treatment plant is sufficient enough to carry out the operation that the plant is charged with being able to do. But if we have an electrical failure, then things get shut down because it doesn't have the power source that it needs, right? Okay, so does the plant have a system in place, like generators or whatever? That's what I would refer to if I'm dealing with my home, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my husband all the time, we need a generator because I never know when the electricity is going to. So do we have emergency equipment in place at the plant so that if the electricity is cut for whatever reason, there's another system that kicks in to keep the plant operational?
So the plant actually has 2 extra systems in place.
Did they work?
Well, the mechanical failure was the mechanical piece that was supposed to cut the power from one to the other. So it's supposed to switch from the one that went down to the one that still has power. And that's the piece of equipment that failed.
So that piece of equipment failed to why? Why did it fail?
Because it's a mechanical piece of equipment that fails.
Did it fail because we hadn't done the right kind of inspections? We hadn't replaced things like we should have? Any of those kinds of things?
No, it's a piece of
No.
equipment that you can test it the day before and it fails. I mean, it's similar to a lot of electrical equipment we have in this day and age that sometimes things just fail at inopportune times.
Okay. All right. So what staff training could have been put in place to prevent any of that from happening?
So they could have been trained on how to manually switch once that electrical system failed. They could have been trained on how to manually switch the power feeds so that
Do we know whether or not, is that something we should anticipate and always provide training for, to manually know how to do those kinds of things? And do we know whether or not any such training was ever provided?
Yes, that's something that should be done, and it does not sound based on our interviews that was done previously.
It has been done previously.
Has not.
Has not been done previously.
Correct.
So there never was any training for the staff to manually operate the equipment if it wasn't functioning.
I shouldn't say that there was no training. I should say it was not widespread.
It's not what?
It was not widespread in the training.
How wide should it be? How many people should know how to do it?
I would think you would want somebody at the treatment plant at all times that has that training And part of the events that were compounded on January 6th is when they tried to call the electricians in, they were also stuck in the storm and not able to respond in a,
So in other
it was
words,
hard
you're
to get.
telling me that there is staff that's trained, know how to do it, but they weren't at the site at the time that the electricity went out. And it took them a while to get there because we were in a snowstorm. And so by the time they got there, the severity of the problem had reached a level of crisis,
Correct.
right? Because otherwise, if I'm hearing you correctly, if it were no storm, sun shining, my electrician could have gotten there perhaps in a more reasonable time and it would not have created a crisis. Is that, the flooding that you're speaking of?
I can't tell you where the
Okay.
electricians were coming from, so
I'm just trying to distinguish. So now you also recommending that we should have more training, we should have a different staffing level. What additional staffing level are we speaking of that should be at the plant all times, right? Because you never know when the electricity may go off, right? What level of staffing you should have there? And the question is also, is that in the budget? Because the next time we have a crisis there and electricity go out and we don't have the adequate staff there, then we're subject to hold staff accountable for something that we haven't put in the budget to position.
So I can't speak to the budget. I don't know what the budget is, but we recommended that they have 4 full-time treatment plant operators on staff
All the time.
all the time.
And what do we have currently?
I believe 3. Or
So you're
I believe previously it was 3.
So we have made some organizational restructuring at the water treatment plant. So prior to this event, we had one dedicated day shift that worked 8-hour days, 5 days a week, and that will support or supplement the daytime operations for like chemical deliveries and things of that nature. And then you had 4 shifts that worked 12-hour shifts and they rotated. So you had 12 hours on, 12 hours off, an A and a B shift. So think of that as 2 crews that worked in tandem with one another. Subsequently to the event, based off the recommendations from the HNTB report, we have reassessed and we have redistributed the staff that were allocated on that day shift to be a part of all the additional shifts, to add that additional person on operations to each one of those shifts. So you have that extra person on the shift operations. And we've tried this out. It seems to be very successful at the plant. We've also added 2 dedicated staff to the plant operations to help with those day-to-day maintenance tasks that may need to be done that have been identified in both the EPA report, but also in some of the items that have been mentioned in the HNTV report. I think what he was trying to get to in this conversation as well, the mechanical failure was a component of the incident that caused the outage and subsequent flooding of the basement. The compounding items he referenced, other than the root cause, was the choice to go to winter mode versus summer mode. Because if that mechanical component had failed and we had been in summer mode, there was a redundant component that would have supplied the plant. You would not have a power interruption. One of the items he's mentioning also with the staff augmentation, we've gone through.
Too much information. I can't comprehend all of that. I'm not following you, so I don't want you to.
It's okay.
I don't want you to waste a lot of time with that. I'm asking one particular question. You're making a recommendation that we should have more staffing in the treatment plant at all times, at all shifts. My question is that recommendation being fulfilled? And if there is adequate funding in the proposed budget before us to meet that staffing requirement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, now I understood that. Thank you. Training. I want to make sure I'm understanding what we're looking for in training and how we're going to document training to make sure that when we say training, that there's a specific level of training. You're saying limited, so I don't know what that means.
So what he was referencing is the electrical staff had training on how to do these operations, but there wasn't a systemic SOP or standard operating procedure for all staff to know what was going on and what they needed to do in each of these incremental processes.
Okay, so all staff
Yes, ma'am.
is to be trained. And
Yes.
how are we making that happen? Is all staff trained at the present time?
So there is a lot of on-the-job training done by staff. There isn't a explicit like checklist that people go through when they get levels of additional certifications. The certifications at the treatment plant are predicated off of them getting their licensures as by the state. So they go to class 3, class 2, class 1 water operator's license.
Are all your staff trained at the level that they need to be trained at?
They are trained by on-the-job training. It's not documented training, and a lot of the SOPs that we have are dated. We've gone through based off the recommendation of HNTB and started updating all those SOPs to make sure all the staff have the training that they need. And then
If they were trained to the level that you're training them to, would they have been able to prevent this crisis,
yes, ma'am.
this failure,
Yes, ma'am.
if they were on staff?
If they were on staff and if they had gotten the training and done the
Of the staff that was on hand, were
Yes,
they
ma'am.
trained? Did they know how to do this work that you're talking about?
I can't confirm that or dispute it. There's no documentation of the training. Most of it's done on the job. They get a senior operator that basically pairs up with a junior operator. They go through and show them how to do things, and that's been the normal mode of operandi.
Madam President, one more question, please. It's important to me that I understand what is a accident that could have been prevented. And if so, who should have prevented it? If it's faulty equipment that we should have replaced in our budget 5, 10 years ago, and we didn't, who carries the burden of responsibility for that not being done? So I'm trying to separate human versus mechanical.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not comfortable that that's possible to do, it seems. But there have been human consequences.
Yeah, I
And
think
there have been consequences as it relates to people that did without water. So the last question I have is, I'm still getting requests from folk that did not have water, that have faced an adverse impact. And I know that we put some money in place to address some of those kinds of things, so we're still getting a lot of requests. Do we have, and this may not be something you can, well, I guess you should be able to answer that. What outstanding requests for folk that have not been made whole, secondary to the lack of water, that they did without doing that for the time? And what is our plan to make these citizens whole as service clients? And do we know what budget is still needed for that? And is that in the budget, the proposed budget that's before us?
Yeah, I can speak to the DPU components of that. But if we're talking about making some type of an adjustment to somebody that had impact to a business or something of that nature, I'd have to not speak to that intelligently. From a DPU perspective, we only charge for the services that are rendered. In this instance, if somebody didn't use that commodity during that time frame, so that 36-hour period when there was a water outage, or if they elected not to do it while the entirety of the boil water notice, they did not get charged for that commodity use over that period of time. And so their bill would be slightly lower rate in relation to their normal bill.
This hours.
Yeah.
I'm questioning damage that was done to a business that they couldn't operate for 5 days, or someone that heated their facility with radiators, right? And that requires water supply, and that didn't happen. I'm talking about the clients that we have asked to send us in a request or the loss that they encountered as it relates to this, not service hours.
Right. I'm not managing that, but I can get you an answer to that
I appreciate it.
subordination.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Breton?
So I guess I want to confirm my understanding that some of the precipitating causes here were like you would call a routine emergency, like the power going out or even the switchgear failing, are relatively commonplace things that are nobody's fault. And it's the lack of proper preparation or training for backup, contingency, fail-safe that was truly the cause of our outage. And did I say that correctly?
Yeah, I guess that would sum up pretty succinctly.
Yeah. One thing I did see was, we talked about, stuff leading up to January 6th, but we can't really answer that. But I also do see in the findings, preventative maintenance work orders were extended past due dates, delays of capital projects were identified. So that does sound like this analysis did delve into the history. Are there examples of preventative maintenance or CIP projects that, had they been done, would have actually prevented this, whether that's updating the switchgear or whether it's making sure the valves are tight enough? Like, were those the sorts of things that could have been done and should have been done, but were not done?
I'd have to look at the report in detail. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't tell you specifics of what was done and what wasn't done. I just know that we found records, and through the interviews, people mentioned these types of things. So I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's not that there is some type of, we're pointing at a valve and saying, oh, that valve was scheduled to be fixed 6 months ago, and for some reason it wasn't. And you go, aha, we found it. Whose name was on the work order? We don't have that. It sounds like we just have a general sense of saying, yeah, work orders don't get done on time. Yeah, we don't really do maintenance as often as we should. That's generally how things go, and that's what this report is telling us.
Yeah, more along those lines than the specifics of it.
And one more, I guess, round of questions is we've done a bunch of analysis around this particular type of failure, the types of preparation we should do to prepare for it, and I'm wondering what other equivalent types of failures across our utilities, whether they are, terrorist attacks, whether they are a sewage overflow, whether they are, excessive heat leading to other problems, what other types of preparation might we not be doing? And what types of changes to our processes are we seeing or can I expect to see to prepare for those as well?
Yeah, I think what this has identified is that we need to go through and document more of our standard operating procedures and routinely train activities associated with these emergency operations. So what you're referencing is a loss of power failure at the water treatment plant, and that's the emergency that we would plan against, right? We can set up several items to address the issues, going through and making sure that we have the redundancies in place, but also going through and doing these tabletop exercises. I think you are more akin to what happens when you have a chemical spill, like what happens when you have a hurricane, what happens when you have mass flooding, what happens when you have a mass shooter type incidents. But all those items would be addressed through routine tabletop exercises and drills that we need to do on site. Now that's going to change. Obviously, water treatment plant and wastewater treatment, they're pretty eerily similar because one treats water to drinking water standards, one treats water to clean water standards. But also with our distribution system, with our collection system, with our stormwater system, with our flood walls, with our billing system, with our customer service systems, these normal best management practices of developing standard operating procedures and training against drills and training against the SOPs, those are already in phase right now to be fully implemented across the utility. Now it's going to take a little bit of time to get all those implemented, so it's not going to be like a snap of the finger type discussion. But as we progress through time, we're going to get more and more standard operating procedures, more policies, more emergency operations developed. And then we're standing up an active site so that everybody can go through and get access to all those SOPs. Now, they're also going to be available in paper form because what happens when you can't access the electronic format? You need the paper form to reference and flip through those, make sure they can, realize what the steps are in the procedures. But hopefully, going through those steps and holistically addressing this across the utility will address those concerns.
Now, I'm sure that our favorite solutions are the ones that are free, just better management, better processes. Those are great. Or should we expect to be seeing differences in your budget this year that reflect new training, new staffing, new systems? Are we going to be able to see those, and will they be obvious that those are sort of improvements over previous budget plans?
Yeah, so the plan that you have to date was the plan that was submitted prior to the January 6th event. And so we are going through the process and reevaluating organizational needs, staffing resource needs. Like if we go through and we add a training arm to DPU to help with these additional training efforts and making sure that there's documentation of those SOPs, the staff get the training that they need. Those will be additional resources. We'll have to consider those against other resources. I know that there is a urgent need to try to keep the rates as low as possible. So we're going to have to prioritize, if I need this position, if I can trade this position, is there a leaning process that can be done holistically across the utilities to make sure that we minimize those rate increases? And we're addressing those as each position comes up for reassessment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Abubakar?
Actually, Director Morris, this is probably for you. So, obviously we're looking at the upcoming budget and we talked about staffing needs. I'm just trying to understand in this where those additional positions are, because it looks like we've taken away an electrician supervisor, but we've added one electrician. We're staying flat on senior electricians. Some reason we added 5 financial managers and a gardener, but I'm not seeing a significant amount of electricians or plant operators being added to this proposed budget.
Yeah, so what we did for this proposed budget, based off the recommendation of them, is the restructuring at the plant itself to try to maximize the amount of resources we have on site to accommodate those needs. So we shifted from a 5 days a week, 8-hour shift, daytime supplemental for like chemical deliveries to supplement the actual shift staff. And so that added capacities on those nighttime operations, but daytime operations holistically. As we move forward, we have committed to looking at the organizational chart as a whole. DPU has had one of the longest or highest vacancy rates of any department. You can cross-check that. But what we're looking for is, are the resources where they need to be? And so when we go through this review process, myself and the management team of DPU are looking at putting the right people in the right seats to make those accommodations. If we make a determination that we need an additional staff member at the wastewater treatment plant or additional staff member added to a shift at the water treatment plant, or additional stormwater staff or additional collection staff or water distribution staff or gas technicians or meter readers or customer service care representatives, we'll go through that vetting process with that. And then hopefully we can reprioritize those positions to make that accommodation. But if not, the request will be going forward to the council and hopefully be considered by Sabrina and the mayor going forward for those additional resources, knowing that those additional resources do come at a cost. And so if we ask for something, we want to make sure we need those positions in those specific spots, because obviously we don't want to pass on that rate increase to the customers if it's not warranted.
Certainly not. I mean, so it sounds like we need more electricians. We need more plant people in the plant, just sheer, even if you're doing reshuffling, which I appreciate, like just sheer volume of plant people. But like, I'm trying to understand how a senior policy advisor, 2 senior policy advisors, like that, again, like in a budget that we're looking at, where can we make changes and where things like are actually delivering services, like why was that prioritized over an 8 management analysts over more plant operators?
Yeah, again, I have to speak to past leadership at the department, but I believe senior policy advisor does aid in trying to develop some of those standard operating procedures and getting that out to staff holistically. So you need somebody to ride herd on creating those policies, those procedures, and then also making sure that those individuals or those procedures are updated routinely in a timely fashion, and that the staff that those procedures are developed for are trained against. So I think holistically, the answer is yes, it's needed. But in the granular scale, yes, we do need more staff. And if I could ask for an infinite budget, I would love to get more and more staff and fill all these needs. But right now we're trying to do this in a piecemeal type effort to try to get the biggest value as possible without disproportionately increasing the rates.
I'm just trying to understand this. So like 8 management analysts 8 new management analysts will move the needle more than just bodies in the plant and extra people to, like, if somebody calls out, an extra electrician. That's a bigger priority than more electricians.
Yeah, so you have to go back and look at I don't know if you don't have it here, but the organizational chart breaks down the maintenance staff that are associated with and electricians that are on staff. From a perspective of PMs and we're going through the process right now of reassessing the PMs as mentioned by HNTB to try to make sure that we don't have redundant PMs, to try to reduce some of those workloads that are on staff to maximize their use on site. But I believe right now, from a maintenance perspective, the mechanics, the electricians, the INC technicians on site right now are adequately staffed to meet the needs as identified right now. A lot of facilities, and you can speak to this as well, if you think otherwise, are manned for normal operations. So those maintenance staff, those INC technicians, those electricians, therefore are usually there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And then during after hours events, there usually is an augmentation period. And so that augmentation period is usually when they set up either a rotating need, like in an event where you stand up the OC and you need staff there 24/7. Those staff would rotate, like 2 staff on, and then they would do an 8-hour shift, and the next 2 staff on would be doing an 8-hour shift. And they would do their normal PMs during their time that they're supposed to be working, or corrective PMs. And then if a urgent need occurred where they needed on-staff response, then they would supplement and be there immediately. A lot of people or a lot of facilities go through an on-call status, which is they're just available if to be called in. And so in that instance, those electricians, those technicians, they're off-site, they're with their families. But when you have an urgent need, they usually have a response time like 30 minutes, 45 minutes to get back on site to respond to the incident. A lot of the items that were mentioned today are associated with allowing you that extra time or flexibility for that incident response. So like when you talk about the sizing of that UPS system, that's to allow those valves to close so that in the event of an electrical outage, you have like an hour to get to the site to make sure that, you can respond and not have an impact, right? Same thing for installing backup generators. The intention behind that is that if you have an automatic transfer switch and it's not a manual activity, that allows your facility, your normal operations, your normal operators to address the concern without having to call in an electrician or an INC technician. And so the system you can set up to be more flexible to kind of give you those additional resources. But you have to be willing to make those trade-offs. What's the risk you're willing to absorb? And are you willing to absorb that risk? Or do you want to create a disproportional impact to the ratepayers? Because like I said before, I would love to be able to just throw resources at something, but sometimes that's not the most cost-effective means. There's different safety protocols we can put in place to add that additional value, and they can offset some of those costs.
Okay, so given the condition of and the age of our facilities, I mean, is that a consideration for why I mean, I understand what you're saying is like building systems so that there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of like human capital. But given the age and condition of our facilities sometimes we do just have to throw bodies at something, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree. At some point, we get to a point where you have to do these repairs and repairs become more frequent. Then we start looking at the capital investment in the system. So do I need to repair these pumps or do I need to replace them? Or do I need to do a rehab of these basins because there's a structural failure component? So what we do from a management perspective is looking at where that break point is, right? Are we starting to incur a lot of maintenance items associated with it? And that's staff time using overtime, just being fully overloaded with maintenance items. And then we start looking at replacing those prone equipment that due to failures with new equipment so that they have less and less of those maintenance items. And there is a break point, like you're mentioning, like there's a point where repairing a piece of equipment becomes too onerous and that you have to go through the process of replacing it in its entirety. I think we have to do a better job at making sure that we replace stuff in a timely manner. I'm not disputing that. And if we do that, it will lessen the burden on our maintenance staff and operators.
Okay. I'll follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tramble.
Madam President, I have just one question. What's a gardener? Y'all need a gardener? It says gardener.
I can't hear
You
you.
can't hear me? It
No.
says in here gardener.
Scott, I think
Did they plant flowers or something?
I'm not sure where it says gardener, so.
It says in here, I guess on page 158, and she asked. It's in the budget. It's in the budget.
Yeah, I have to look back at that. There was a existing position that was reclassified from a gardener position. That was under our maintenance staff. Is that the one that's?
What do they do?
Your question is the same as mine. When I stepped in this, I don't know what a gardener does from a utility perspective.
I thought they plant flowers or something. Is that what they're doing? Planting flowers, pulling weeds?
So a lot of the times, this is more of a ground maintenance type perspective and not a gardening type perspective. And so based off those positions, I'm not fully sure if they're doing ground maintenance associated with some of our wastewater treatment plant or pump stations. That could be an aspect of that. But without diving into the position right off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But they're not planting flowers. They're not trimming trees. I can firmly tell you that.
I'll get a follow-up.
Okay.
They're composting.
What are they doing?
They're
That's a good one.
Vice President Jordan.
Yes, thank you. I guess one question, just to zoom out a little bit, I appreciate this report and all the reports that have come before it. And I think it's really hard to tease out what the one specific thing is when there's so many layered things that compounded the issue. And you can look at them in 5 different directions and say, if we just done this one thing differently. But going forward, I know there have been great interest in the regional question. And I'm just wondering from our director or from our CAO, sort of where we are on those conversations. Thank you.
I'll take a first stab, and if I misspeak, she can correct me. A lot of discussion on a regional discussion is making sure that when our wholesale regional partners are involved in some of these discussions, both from a investment perspective and a supply perspective. Routinely in the past, we had done annual meetings with each of these wholesale providers and gone over our capital improvement plan so that they would be fully cognizant of, the items that were forthcoming, but also their share of those investment costs. Post COVID, that kind of went to the wayside and it was never reconstituted. One of the items that we're moving forward with is increasing that transparency with our regional partners and reestablishing some of those meetings, both for awareness on those projects that are the costs that may be burdened by them to pay their fair share, but also just from general awareness. When we open up the conversation to wholesale partners, there's always a better way to do something. There's always a better process, and more eyes, more engineers you put on it. There may be an avenue for cost-effective projects to move forward, or reductions or reconsideration of projects that provide better value and keeps the rate low for us, but also for them, because they also bear a share of that cost burden when we have these new capital projects come forth.
That's a good part one to the response. I appreciate hearing any additional conversation from our interim CAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Joy Hogg again. The regional conversations are continuing. We've met a couple of times with Henrico, and like Dr. Morris just said, he has started up the monthly meetings, right? Is it monthly? Quarterly? Okay. Well, he's meeting more regularly with the other directors. But in terms of like a regional, I guess, authority or something like that, that's a much longer term process. That also involves, we have a lot of debt in our utility system and the water treatment plant itself. Somebody has to buy that debt. And that's not always the easiest proposition to go to that regional authority type. There's a lot of financial implications with something like that. And then it's the structure. Who would manage it? Who would do it? Our water treatment plant was set up for a regional service. It has the capacity to pump about 132 million gallons per day. We have the water source, James River. We have the permit. We've been grandfathered in for the permit. And it just, there's a lot of complicated issues around looking at a regional water authority, and that's at least a 2-year process. I think the more issue is having the regional partners have more oversight and more directive conversations within our plant. And that's what Dr. Morris is working on, is that if they want to, and I've offered it to them, if they want to come here before a storm is happening and they want to run through their checklist to make sure that we've done everything, they're more than welcome to do it. I think it's more about that type of conversation to make sure that service is never interrupted again. So, but we
Thank
are
you.
continuing those conversations with them.
Yeah, I think it's a larger conversation of, do we need a regional authority for cost sharing? But appreciate where we are at this moment, and thank you for the reports.
Just a quick question. The EPA report, the BDH report, now that we have this final report, when will we respond to the recommendations, items that were delineated there in those 2 documents?
Yeah, so I believe the EPA report, we haven't received any subsequent communication from EPA regarding the last submittal. I do believe that VDH will probably follow up after the assessment that they do for their third parties. I think they brought on SEH, and they will probably do a condition assessment of the facility as well. And then that will most likely promulgate additional discussion, additional action items that we have to respond to. Hopefully, in the short run, we've already started talking about making sure that we've addressed all the items that are on the EPA report. But obviously, as you go through, there's going to be something probably that was missed or overlooked. That's subsequent correspondence from VDH, where they provide additional clarity on the severity and the significance of the repairs. We will address those as well. Normally, when that happens, you'll have like a time frame of response akin to like 30 or 45 days. So as soon as we get something, I'll be happy to share with the council members for their awareness that it's happening. And then obviously we can keep you abreast of any of our responses back to BDH or EPA if they submit something to us.
Thank you. Councilmember Lynch?
Madam President. Thank you again for coming to our district meeting. Mr. Morris, you did an awesome job, and I think people left feeling a lot more confident in the work going forward than when they got there. And I thought you just did a fantastic job fielding their questions. So thank you for coming out to the 5th District. You're always welcome. I just had a general question. I mean, you heard in that district meeting, probably even more so than some of the really good in-depth questions about the report and the SOPs going forward and all the things that you're going to work on fixing. Folks really were interested in the customer service aspect of DPU. And I noticed in the budget that there was a reduction in 6 FTEs for the customer care specialist, as well as the customer account investigator had 2 FTEs. So I don't know if you're reallocating those positions, but just do you have any thoughts on the line of logic there? Just given the volume of customer service needs we have for DPU, do you think that's a good direction for us to go? Do you think we need to lean in, or is this the right, or are we making staffing cuts that make more sense?
No, we're not making staffing cuts. I think what we're doing right now is reassessing our needs and how we do business as a whole. So I've had a lot of discussions with our customer service team to talk about what our normal business protocols are, how we do escalations, how we address some of these concerns. Are there abilities for us to prevent some of these billing issues from occurring before they occur? And if we're able to do that, it obviously would reduce some of the demand on those customer service agents. But also if we can address some of the leak adjustments in advance as well, be more proactive than reactive in some of these scenarios. If we can reduce the call volume associated with this and the ability to do these escalation reports, it's of much more value for the department and the city as a whole to try to address these on the front end versus the back end. And I think that lends to the discussion on eliminating some of those care agents, but also looking at how we can do our process better.
With that, I'd like to thank you very much. I appreciate the speed with which we moved through getting this report the interim to this point and look forward to the matrix with full implementation, time, all of those things, and doing due diligence to make sure that we are as swiftly as possible implementing the recommendations. But do want to say thank you, Mr. Morris, and certainly HNTB for your work with us.
And thank you, Madam President, and council members for both your continued support of the third-party report, but also utilities as a whole to make sure we provide service to our customers.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, we will move on to our Director of Finance with the annual comprehensive financial report. Welcome, Ms. White.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of City Council. My name is Sheila White, and I'm the Director of Finance for the City of Richmond. Today, I'll be presenting highlights from our annual comprehensive financial report, or AFR, for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. The report reflects the financial position of the city, its performance over the past year, and our compliance with accounting standards. The AFR is available online for review at rva.gov. It was posted on February 4th, 2025. And I have with me today Sean Walker, who is the principal at CLA, our external accounting firm, and he's going to start off the presentation.
Thank you, Sheila. Again, thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Council, for having us here today. And I also want to thank the staff, Sheila and David and the team. Obviously, undergoing an audit is always a challenging process. It takes a lot of time, and they did very well at getting us the information we needed. So we have met with the audit committee back on March 11th. So we have gone through a lot of the details. I'm going to keep my comments high level, and then we'll see if you have any questions. So first and foremost, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that an audit firm can give a city, so congratulations on that. We were able to actually clear 2 findings from prior years, and we had 1 finding for the current year. The finding in the current year was to deal with a complex accounting issue around a debt that was issued to help fund the pension. And I don't anticipate it continuing. It was a unique transaction, but we only had the 1 finding. And I know that just from a way of update too, is that we also issued the single audit. We had no findings there. So what that means is that there's good news all around for the city of Richmond as it comes to their audited financial statements and their single audit report. I'll stand and see if you have any questions whatsoever.
Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. I do have some questions. My first question is really is me, newbie, just have questions really about process. I spent most of my time looking at page 11 in the CAFR document, and I'm also comparing it to the prior year one, just so I'm kind of clear on what the numbers typically look like, you know. And so I noticed some pretty big, changes in terms of looking at the original budget versus the amended budget. And so this is a question that it may be best to just from our leadership and the administration. I'm wondering, what the process is for these budget amendments. I mean, if I'm understanding right, looking at the bottom, like total expenses, the original budget has in 2024 to 951.9 million, but the amended budget went to 1 million or 1 billion, 1.55. That's an increase of like $103 million. I'm wondering what the process is where this change, like, does council review and approve these changes when the amendments are made? And are they published? Because I don't see, when I look at the published budget documents, I don't see that number.
So I'll try to approach it from a high level. Sabrina Joy Hogg again. Budget amendments always come before City Council. They're done by ordinance. So those numbers are always reflected in the public process.
Okay. So then when we go through the budget process and we are looking at the adopted budget, it would be helpful, because I would presume, like, right now we're going through the budget process and the budget document that we're looking at says prior year budget, right? So we're looking at prior year. But I'm presuming, just by history, that we're not actually looking at the actual prior year, like, we're not looking at the amended one, right? So how can we find out where the budgets are, to see the history of the budget amendments? Because it's just a sizable amount of money. It was $103 million increase in the budget. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, what does that look like right now?
Okay. 103 million does sound like a lot, but I don't know what the specifics are of it. We can get you the list of amendments, but in terms of how a budget is developed, you always start with the adopted budget and you build from there. So if there are actions that occur mid-year, those are then annualized in the next budget. And that's where you'll see, that's what you have before you in the 26 budget.
So just to be clear, I've compared the CAFR amounts to the budget documents, and when it's showing the historical background, it's not showing the amendments. So it would be helpful to see the documentation.
Those actual amounts, or the immediate prior year, so 2025 would show you only the adopted budget. It would not have amended budgets in there. And the years before that would be at a point in time when the data is pulled. The CAFR is always the more accurate one to show the year end, all the transactions that occurred.
So what I'm asking for is to see the 2025 budget in this moment in time with any of the amendments that have happened, so that we are clear on what the actual budget is in this moment in time as we are working on the fiscal year 2026 budget.
Sure, we can get you that.
Thank you. My other question is, the other thing that stands out, and Richmond is not unique in this, is the change in revenue, right? Because we've been in, and I always attested this to the fact that, property assessments are going up so rapidly. It's hard it can be hard to plan, and I understand that's why we've changed the calendar, which I think is wonderful. So I mean, and it's a lot of money, that ends up we've had in surplus because of the variance. It says in the document, in the second paragraph, it says, so it says actual general fund revenues were more than the original budgeted revenues by 62 million during fiscal year 2024. Actual revenue collections exceeded the amended budget by 42.8 million. This increase is attributable in part to collections of general property taxes such as real property and personal taxes. So it sounds like, if I'm reading this correctly, that the increase is not as much about the assessment changing, but actually our collection process changing. So that's a question. And then so it's a question and an ask too. Can we get today where we're at in terms of collections on property taxes? Because, like, the budget is based on a 5% increase, but I'm wondering if it's based on a 5% increase of what we thought it was a year ago, or is it based on, the reality of, like, what our calculations are looking at right now?
So some of this I had prepared. I had some prepared remarks. So I do want to give you those prepared remarks. But to answer more specifically your question, I think what in order for you to get to what you're looking at, you actually do have access to it, and it's called our monthly financial report. It's the report that comes out on the 15th. So you have the actual, the original budget, the amended budget in that report, and it also gives you collections year to date. That report's going to be updated next Tuesday, because that's the 15th. So you'll have actual numbers that you can see where we are year to date. But to answer your question, yes, collections are higher. In part to we're taking a lot of different avenues to actually collect revenue and make sure that whenever the assessments go out, that we have a good process to collect on that. And I think if you remember back to the budget presentation, there was a slide just showing the increase in collection rates.
Thank you. And then my final question, and this I am scratching my head a bit, so be patient with me. So I guess it's a couple of things. So for one, I'm just comparing it. So like, for example, when I looked at this page, I did focus both on the revenues and the changes in revenues, but also looked at the non-departmental line item there, because that's something we've been talking about a lot, as a city. And so for one, the number just seemed it was off. So it says here that the original budget in 2024 was 87.3 million. And it's not a huge difference, but it seemed different because in the actual budget document, the budget is written at 88.6 million. So that's one thing. But then what stands out is that the non-departmental, so it shows that non-departmental went from 87.3, and then it was amended, so to 115.5 million. So that was a huge amendment in the non-departmental. So I'd love to hear more about what the amendment, we passed for that amendment. But then it says that the actual amount was $206.1 million for a variance of 90.7. And then it shows, again, I looked at it the CAFR last year to make sure that the parentheses means what I think, so there wasn't these amounts were not in parentheses in last year's CAFR. So overall, it appears that maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but it says the actual amount spent in 2024 was $1.1 billion, but the amended budget was for $55 million less than that. So it looks like we went over by $55 million. So so that's a few questions there. One is did we overspend by $55 million? And then the other question is, can you provide more detail on the $206 million that was the actual expenditures for non-departmental? Thank you.
Yes, we can provide you more detail, but I think some of the questions, we just need to sit down and walk you through it. Some of them may be related to ARPA funding that came in and was moved into non-departmental during the course of the year. And then we also have roll forwards that are, if there's a PO or a contract in place, those get carried forward as well. So I don't have the detail with me, and I don't think Sheila does either, but we're happy to sit down with you and give you the detail behind it.
I'm not a fan of one-on-one conversations, because I've said this in public. I want to make sure that the public is aware of whatever that response is. And so if you're saying that there was some budget transfers that were happening, would that not be included in other financing sources?
If that question is for me, not necessarily. Those could have been roll forwards from the prior year. So depending on where the budgeting authority comes from. So I don't have the details. Can't give that to you right now, but certainly happy to get back with you.
Okay. Yeah, because this is, as we're talking about non-departmental, and if I'm hearing that we move money from ARPA to fund an additional, this is an additional 90.
It was never in any other line. It was always in non-departmental, just wasn't in the budget for 24 because it had been approved in 23. So those are things that roll forward. So it's not an overspend, even though it appears to be.
Okay. I mean, it seems like we might, if there's no, I know that there's policy, if there's an increase in money, right, or if there's a fund balance, then it has to be reappropriated. So I'm wondering what the policy process is. If you're saying that this is taking money from last year's budget that was left over, then there would have to be money left over in last year's budget. So I guess I'm just confused as to how this happened. I mean, it's a lot of money. So
Okay. Happy to have the discussion.
thank you.
Great. All right, Sean, any other comments? You're on mute.
I was muted. I don't have any.
All right, thank you. I just have a few more comments.
Yes,
Yep,
please.
okay. So the AFR is a detailed audited financial report covering all the funds and activities in the city. It's prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and is reviewed by the independent auditor. The AFR also ensures transparency and provides the public and stakeholders with insight into the financial health of the city of Richmond. The report has three major sections: the introductory section, which includes our letter of transmittal and organizational information; the financial section, which includes the independent auditor's report, management discussion and analysis, and the financial statements. And finally, we'd have this statistical section, which provides 10 years of historical data on financial trends, revenue, capacity, debt, and demographics. Moving on to the financial highlights. The total net position for the primary government, which includes both the governmental and business activities on a full accrual GAAP basis, was $1,783.3 million on June 30, 2024. The total net position increased by $206.6 million compared to the prior fiscal year. FY24 total assets for the primary government were $4,377.9 million, an increase from the prior year of total assets by $260.9 million. Total assets for only governmental activities were $2,222.8 million, up by $93.4 million or 4.4%. Total assets from business type activities increased by $167.3 million in fiscal year 2024, accounting for 49.2% of total primary government assets compared to 48.3% in the prior fiscal year. Total liabilities were $2,810.8 million, up from $245.8 million, from $2,565.6 million in fiscal year 2023. The total liabilities associated with governmental activities increased by approximately $147.6 million, while the total liabilities associated with business type activities increased by 98.2 or 9.6%. As we look at the fund performance and specifically drilling down to our general fund, which is the city's largest governmental fund and therefore deserves our attention, the general fund ended the year with a fund balance of $268.6 million. Total revenues and other financing sources total $1,014.5 million in fiscal year 2024, and that's an increase of $92 million from the prior year. Property and other local taxes accounted for $738.2 million, or 73.4% of our total revenues. Actual general fund revenues were more than the original budgeted revenues by $62.6 million during the fiscal year. Actual revenue collections, as we noted before, exceeded the amended budget by 48.2%. And as noted in the MD&A, this is attributable in part to the collection of general property taxes, such as real property and personal property taxes, which exceeded the budget by $17.7 million, and other local taxes, such as meals tax and bank franchise tax, which exceeded budget by $10.3 million. Expenditures and transfers out totaled $1,110.4 million, and that is an increase of $244.2 million, or 28.2% from the prior year. Public safety, judiciary, and education, the two largest program areas, totaled $484.3 million, or 51.2% of the general fund expenses. Actual general fund total expenses and other financing sources were greater than the original budget by $158.5 million and less than the amended budget by $55.3. During the fiscal year, as we noted before, the city council amended the budget several times. So moving to our other major funds. The enterprise funds such as gas, water, wastewater, and stormwater showed strong operational performance and positive net income. In the capital projects fund, it reflects our ongoing investment in the city's infrastructure. The Department of Public Utilities spent $202.5 million during the fiscal year to expand, upgrade, and renew its infrastructure. The gas utility invested approximately $5.4 million to support our expanding market base and $25.3 million in upgrades to existing infrastructure. The water utility invested approximately $55.2 million in upgrades to our infrastructure, including $30.18 million in investments in major plant and pumping improvements, $1.34 million in water transmissions, and $23.68 million in water distribution. The water utility invested approximately $78.25 million in upgrades to existing infrastructure, of which $20.15 million was spent on major plant improvements, $22.48 million of improvements to the combined sewer system, and $35.34 million into sanitary sewers. The stormwater utility invested $38.9 million to upgrade their existing infrastructure. As Sean mentioned earlier, the report received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance given by auditors. This means the financial statements present in a fair and accurate manner the view of the city's finances. In the single audit, as Sean mentioned, the auditor noted a material weakness related to the recording of the pension debt. But most significantly, there was the removal of the two prior year findings for significant deficiencies, and those dated back to 2015. Just some trends and observations. Revenues have continued to grow steadily. Our debt levels, however, remain within our policy guidelines with favorable bond ratings. In May of 2024, the city achieves its first coveted AAA status bond rating by Fitch, moving the city into an elite class of organizations with proven financial responsibility. The city has maintained strong credit ratings in recent years, as reaffirmed through the AA1 and AA ratings by Moody Investor Services and Standards & Poor's, respectively, falling just one notch short of the highest possible rating. As this report outlines, the city continues to make progress and is well on its way to achieving its primary goals by managing to balance budgets, maintaining existing tax rates, and increasing delinquent collection and reducing spending. In conclusion, overall, the AFR confirms that the city is on sound financial standing. We remain committed to transparency, responsible fiscal management, and long-term sustainability. I'd like to thank our finance team, who worked very hard to complete this report, and our independent auditors for their work. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have or provide clarifications for any part of the report.
Thank you, Ms. White. Councilmember Robertson, question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. White. Is it possible to get a copy of your presentation, your full report? And when you provide that, is it possible for you to make reference to where I can find that information in this report, even at least by page number or something. That would be extremely helpful. We had asked also for a better opportunity to walk through this report as a part of the Finance Committee. And because this presentation was being made to the full council, we waived that request. However, I would like to have a full report of that and to make sure that the finance staff, or the Finance Committee staff, receive that report, and that we would probably have some additional questions and requests for information that we would like to be prepared and ready for us at the April 16th meeting, I think it is.
I'd be happy to do that.
Appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Lynch.
It's a lot to digest. And I was trying to follow along as best I could. So I'm going to try to ask the questions in order that I think I received the information. I'm trying to try my best. So with the AAA bond, well, I'll start with a high level question. With the AAA bond rating that we receive, we always hear, the beauty of having the AAA bond rating is you're able to expand your debt capacity. That's what I've heard. That might be incorrect. So tell me why you all, like, just local government 101, why is everyone always hyper fixated on the AAA bond rating? That might be a dumb question, but I think it's very important because it leads to my next question about liabilities and this other number.
I don't think that's a dumb question. It does not increase our ability to borrow, but it does increase our ability to borrow more efficiently. One of the reasons why we want this rating is because it really highlights, number one, the financial strength of the city, and then number two, that we're a well-run, well-managed city. And so I think it puts us up there with our neighbors who are surrounding us who already have AAA ratings. And so when you look at the city of Richmond, you don't make a distinguishment against us as we're notched below them, but we're right at the same level. So I think it's incredibly important in terms of our stature as a city to show that we are a strong and well-run city. And also it gives us the ability to borrow efficiently and use those taxpayer dollars, stretch them just a little bit further.
So with that, what are the three biggest items in the AFR that keep you up at night that either expose us to more risk with our AAA bond rating, or make it more likely that we'll achieve and maintain our AAA bond rating?
So the things that keep me up at night is, our ability to be really prodigious in collecting taxes. It's very important that once we assess that we collect those taxes. And so anytime we're wavering on that, that does put us at risk for revenues and being able to fund the programs that we want to fund. The other thing that I think is really important, and it's a difficult question, it's not mine to solve, but it does keep me up at night, is our tax rates. We want to be competitive as a city, but we also have to understand that those tax rates do fund decisions that have been made before us. And so if the tax base isn't there, then that makes the equation just a little bit more difficult. And you said the third, what would be the third thing that would keep me up? Just any, big policy shifts, really being methodical about how we go about putting policy into place and understanding all the tentacles that has. I think in our desire to be really an equitable and fair city, we move pretty quickly on things, and we may not have fully vetted out all of the ways in which that one change could have rippling effects throughout our budget. So those are the things that keep me up. It might be different from what keeps the mayor up and the CAO, but you asked what kept me up, and those are the things that the director of finance that keep me up.
So it's not the net pension liability, the $277 million.
No. I feel like we have solved for that equation.
Okay.
And as long as we continue to do the things that we put in place and those policies that we put in place around it, we should be in very good shape. And it was a very good decision to do.
Okay. And then my last question, and this is a nod to my predecessor. He would be mad at me if I didn't ask about it. I'm looking at the city taxes that we charge. It seems to me that we are still dangerously low in what we're collecting in our other categories of tax against the real estate tax. I mean, cigarette tax, prepared food, our lodging tax. How does that stack up to other localities that are similarly sized?
So in terms of our real estate and personal property, we fare well when we compare ourselves against a Chesterfield, a Henrico.
I know we're doing well on our real estate.
Yeah. Yep. So, and personal property, because that had been like a constant conversation in audit committee, and really took a look at them. They present theirs a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
What I would encourage you to look at is page 151 and 152 of the stats section, and that gives you like the 10-year, but that's just on personal property and real estate levies. I don't know the answer to that question as it relates to their collection rate for meals taxes and other taxes
Cigarette
of those.
tax.
Cigarette, they don't publish that, so I can't compare us to it. It's just, it's not one of those things that, it's a lot of information in here. It's 160 some pages. It's a lot of information. Just don't report on those smaller taxes
The other localities do not report on.
on their collection rate for those.
That would be I don't know if that's something that we could look at, but I think it'd be fascinating, just because our city is so heavily reliant on real estate tax, to see how we stack up against other localities in lodging, cigarette, prepared foods. I would guess that the city cigarette tax, if we were to really look at how much we could be collecting, might be a little higher, as well as perhaps some of these other taxes, but it's hard to tell, right, without a
And so
comparable.
they'll have the lines. I mean, we could probably go back and accumulate the data. What I won't have is what was their collection rate. So what was assessed versus what they collected. That's what's going to be missing. So, I mean, we could literally go back and have an analyst pull that data, but to really give you a good sense or comparison on what's being collected versus what's assessed, not as easy, because that information is just not out there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Abubakar.
I have to say that the real estate taxes also keep me up at night, but I think for a different reason than they do you. I would say, so page 95, I'm just trying to understand this significant variance in RRS contributions. It looks like we went over budget by $101 million in terms of contributions. And then in the 2023 CAFR, it looks like we only budgeted to contribute $1 million, or we only did contribute $1 million. But then when I'm looking here, we budgeted $6 million for 2023. Then again, for 2024, we budgeted $1 million, but we paid in $105 million.
Part of that's going to be the pension obligation bonds and how we accounted for those. So it ran through that account.
I don't know what that means. So like, can you walk me through, like, because that's a huge variance, right? Like,
yeah. So in order to have the expenditure, this is the general fund portion of the pension obligation bond. So you have to account for the revenue coming in and also the expenditure going out. So we took out those bonds in 2024, got the revenue in, but then what you're looking at is the expenditure out and the general funds portion of that expenditure being sent over to RRS.
so did we not anticipate that? Like, why wouldn't we have anticipated and budgeted for that
So
correctly?
the authorization and the anticipation was in the bond ordinance.
Sabrina Joy Hogg again. The pension obligation bonds were authorized mid-year, so they weren't in the original budgeted amount, if I'm reading it correctly.
So for this year, have we accounted for that? Like,
It was a one-time action, the pension
Okay.
obligation bonds.
okay. And then just to go back to the question that my colleague had on page 12, regarding the variance between what was budgeted and actual. And I know we mentioned that City Council approved multiple budget amendments throughout the year. One, just to clarify, my understanding is that those budget amendments come from the mayor's office, then we approve them, but it's not like we're going and changing the budget mid-year, independent of the administration. So I just wanted to clarify that point. And then two, even with that, many of those budget amendments need to be offset in order for them to be passed, mid-year budget amendments, correct? No?
Sorry. Not necessarily. Sometimes there is new revenue that's accounted for. So last November, we had additional of $12 million with the reassessment that came in. So that would have been in addition to what was passed in May.
So then we get to just create new budget items for that.
Correct. Or if there's unanticipated revenues that come in, like also Greca money rebated back to us. And that was an additional 3 million that came in last year. That was also by ordinance that was then expended. When I say last year, it was like last November.
Is there ever an instance where we like give that money back to people?
Yes, we did that with the tax rebate.
Yeah.
We did the 4-cent equivalent. That was $16 million that we gave back.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Trammell.
Thank you, Madam President. Maybe you said it earlier, Sheila, might have forgot. But anyway, we were talking, I know every time we have our 8th district meeting, since last year, the citizens have been asking about the ones that are not paying the taxes that are owed, like real estate, utilities, all of that. Are you going to update us on that next week? Because I know you just said something about, and I want to ask my colleague, because she said something about the cigarette tax. Is that like in the city, or is that surrounding counties, or how does that exactly? Because I know they put a tax, I believe they put a tax.
Increased it.
Hmm?
Member increased it twice.
I know, and they were very upset. Philip Morris was very, very upset when our previous mayor, Mayor Jones, was going to tax them again, and they threatened to move their operation, and they did. They moved part of it from the city to Henrico. I think that's a building, all of that we just bought. So can we ask our staff to look into that too? Because I know that they have really, really cut, like C-Shift that I used to work on, it is like cut in half. So a lot of the employees are kind of worried about, are we going to increase another tax on them? Because if so, they might, that might not be good.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you want to update on the cigarette tax and also the tax collection as it relates to delinquent real estate.
Because I know that it was said when the previous mayor came to our meeting, I believe it was in October of last year, there was a couple citizens that said there was like $50 million that has not been collected. And the citizens are upset. Now, I mean, I'm getting all these calls and texts. Why y'all raising it? Because they've been listening. And they're like, and then when you look at this, we say it's only like $12, but then you add this, you add that, and then it's another $20-some that's going to be each month, because we get a utility bill each month, not every 2 months.
Yeah. Do you want me to bring that to Finance Committee? Would that be part of the ask?
Do you know what day that's going to? Well, if we could, like my
Yeah.
colleague said, I think with us in the budget right now, I
Mhm.
think this needs to be maybe at the OD or, I mean, at the next meeting that we have either on the 14th or 16th, so that the citizens that are listening, they can, know
Happy to do that.
exactly what we're talking about. Thank you,
Councilmember
Sheila.
Trammell, we'll get that question added, and to your point, bring it
Thank you, Madam
to that
President.
session.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because these are a lot of questions that they've been asking, and we haven't got a clear answer.
Certainly.
I mean, we're not saying we're gonna put you out of your house. We're saying, put you on a payment plan, make you pay. And because right now, like you said, we're in a crisis. We need more money.
And I can add a little color to it,
Thank
certainly.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice President Jordan?
Thank you so much. Yes, I had a question about page 90, and this will be for a future report, but I think it's a really important topic. I know we're a little bit weary, it's been a long day. But the Gas Utility Enterprise Fund. To ensure the continuity of natural gas supplies and transmission facilities, the city's Gas Utility Enterprise Fund has entered into various long-term supply and transmission contracts through the year 2054. The aggregate commitments under these contracts amount to approximately $1.1 billion at June 30th, 2024. So I don't believe that any of these contracts come to city council. So the only way we are going to have sightlines into it would be if we got a presentation on the Gas Utility Enterprise Fund, which I would really appreciate, because this is one of those things where our constituents are going to suffer whether natural gas is expensive or cheap. If it's expensive, they're not going to be able to afford it. If it's cheap, then we're not going to have the revenues to pay for these commitments. So whether that's finance or GovOps, because gas utility reports to GovOps, or it's the Public Utilities Commission, I just think I have been requesting an update in the gas utility master plan for a couple of years now, and I'm just increasingly concerned about us sinking more money into this. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you. Ms. White, I want to say thank you for the report. Sounds like we are on the road to AAA bond rating again, at least with one, and AA with another. Is that correct?
AA1 and AA, so one notch below AAA with S&P and Moody's.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Slats will get the list of questions to you so that we can get that back for members. Oh, I thought there was a question over there. Ms. Jones is not. Okay. So again, thank you, and look forward to future discussions and clarification on the items that have been raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Clerk, please read the paper for consideration this evening.
Yes, the one item for consideration is item 2, Resolution 2025 R010, to establish the civilian. To amend City Code is item 1, Ordinance 2025-051, to amend City Code concerning the Participatory Budget Steering Commission for the purpose of providing a stipend to commission members and allowing commission to create ad hoc committees. That paper is before this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. This paper basically mitigates barriers for community resident and really participation in the process, and would provide honorarium for members of about $41.66 for each meeting, for a total of 12 meetings. So the maximum that could be received would be $500. And then for the ad hoc committee, $25 per member for approximately 8 meetings. Again, it is often a challenge for community representatives to participate in some of the meetings. This is not going to certainly create any kind of major salary, but it does mitigate and reduce the barriers. And there are any number of them, from if you need gas or food or childcare, any number of things that would be an impediment. And so, Mrs. Slats, do you want to add anything else as a lead here?
I'll just say that this has been long-term commitment. It began when the commission was established in 2022. So it's been going on, and this is just really a formalization of that commitment in the city code.
Thank you. With that, we'll now have we'll come back, Ms. Gibson, after the public hearing. We'll now have a public hearing on this paper. Mr. Clark.
Yes, is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in support? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Back to the committee.
Okay, back to the committee. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. I'm prepared to support this. I just have a question in terms of what the overall budget impact is. I understand that this is budgeted for the fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year that we're talking about. But I'm just curious to know what the overall cost that is in the fiscal year 26 budget for this item. And I was also curious, we have many commissions, and this is one of them. And I'm curious to hear from my colleagues and staff. Are all of our commissions provided a stipend? And is there a reason why? I mean, is this something that the body has explored to pursue more broadly? Thank you.
I'm going to rely on Mrs. Slatz to get back to you in terms of the budget item, but not all commissions are. I know with the airport commission, our representatives that receive an honorarium, if you will. There are some others that I'd like us to take a look at, especially that would facilitate our youth participation on them, to begin to create that, group of next leaders, but certainly to look at all of them and make that determination would be ultimately as opposed to one-offs.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So, Councilmember Trammell, you're okay.
Madam President, I really don't understand this. I have some questions about this too, because not all the committees or not all the boards that we serve are paid like RAA. I'm on that board now. That doesn't pay. I know the airport does, but there's still, now I'm hearing that the PB, I think it's that they're going to be paying people too.
Right, that this is what
Wait
this.
a minute, wait a minute.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, but I don't understand, it's like, who's deciding who's going to get paid for what? And when we got people that serve, like we have people on different boards that don't get paid anything, and then the PB budget or whatever committee or board that just got created, I guess, a year ago. And now I'm hearing, because I didn't fully understand it, and I think Will for sending it to me, that they're going to be paid, I think, $50 or
$41.66 per meeting for 12 meetings for a maximum of 500.
Is that for everybody? Like say we have, that's going to be for anybody, everybody that says, because now we're going to have civic association says, we want to get paid too now.
Okay, this is the participatory budgeting commission that we're talking about in this instance. But I think to Councilmember Gibson's point, and I've certainly asked this question where we've had certainly looked at youth involvement, that we need to take a look to determine if in fact we should consider some level of honorarium for participants that would help facilitate greater community participation and bring greater community voice to these initiatives and projects. So, okay. Councilmember.
Madam President.
Yes.
I am fully supportive of all the work that the PB folks are doing. However, we have so much duplication between, we've got the administration that has their community engagement team. We've got community ambassadors. We've got a neighborhood civic association point person. And then we have all of our PB folks. I mean, it is a lot. Like, can we get a crosswalk of all these positions? Because I don't think we should fund something. I mean, we need to shift this from the mayor's budget. Like if we as council are the representatives of our people and we are in charge of community, we have been charged with community engagement and hearing to be the voices of and channel of the voices of our people, then we shouldn't have these other functions live in multiple, not just one, but it's like in multiple other budgets, in multiple other departments that we could pull out of this budget book right here. It just, and then for us to fund these, commission positions, I'm all about it, but let's shift it away. I mean, that's just a lot of people getting paid to do a lot of the same thing. I feel like we should have some type of a crosswalk between what they're tasked with doing and what, and being paid to do with what this commission is doing.
So to your point and to Councilmember Trammell's point, absolutely, and I'm going to ask GovOps to take this on, to take a look at across the board, these boards and commissions and opportunities for what I call honorariums, really to really increase community participation, but to your point, not to have multiple places and spaces. So yes. Councilmember Trammell?
And Madam President, you bring it back to all of us so we can all be on the same page with this.
Yes, it would come back. Vice President Jordan nodded her head. I turned
Well, just to make sure I understand, so there's two things here. One is honorariums, and I think as new boards and commissions have been created, that's when they've been added, but we need to look at all of them. But then the second thing, what I heard from Councilmember Lynch is all the different staff people doing engagement. Right, and that's a budget question. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Robertson?
Question for clarification. Does this commission, the steering committee exist? How many members? And creating another ad hoc committee, is this to take care of the costs associated? Is that in the current budget? Or is it proposed to be in the budget that we're looking at to be adopted in May?
Yes, it's in the current, but I'll punch.
Is in the current budget?
Yes,
Current operating budget.
that's correct.
And do we know the total amount that we're speaking of? Total dollar amount that's in the budget for this?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
how many members?
We've got, apologize. We've got nine commission members, one from each council district.
I'm
So
sorry.
We've got nine commission members, one from each council district. So it's $4,500 budgeted for the year. And then with the delegates, that's they're an ad hoc committee that was created to vet the proposals. They met for 2 months from January through February, 8 meetings. So they were giving $200, or that's what we're proposing giving them for that service.
Okay, so give me the total numbers. I'm having difficulty hearing you. So you have non-commissioners that are appointed by council. And then you have an ad hoc committee in addition, or is that appointed by the commissioners? And how many ad hoc committee members?
Yeah, so that was appointed by the commission in conversation with the city attorney's office. We did that through them. And then there were 27 members of those delegates, so 3 per council district. So times $200 each. So we're at, my math is not.
Wait a minute. So you're saying we got 27 members for the ad hoc commission that was appointed by the commissioners themselves? An additional subcommittee of sort that was created with 27 members.
Correct.
And so we are compensating the commissioners and the ad hoc committee that they created.
Correct.
And what's the total budget amount for that?
Just doing my math right now. So I have it for all of it, be just under, so $9,900.
I'm sorry.
$9,900 if you do both of them.
Okay.
I think that's correct.
And the total budget for the participatory budgeting is,
The operational cost, like that we set aside, was $150,000 for the
now that,
year.
I didn't, no, I'm not asking, I'm asking what the total budget is. Because you have one staff person at 150.
That's the operational, so you're also.
$1,500 is one salary.
Sorry, again, I didn't hear you.
What's the total budget? Are we talking $3 million that we appropriating into this line item?
Yeah, so as we've tried to explain several times, there's the $3 million that goes out to the projects that are selected by the community, right? And then there's the operational budget for the Richmond People's Budget, which goes towards the engagement work that's been going on for over a year. So which is $150,000. That's based on a review that the commission did and presented to council over 2 years ago. In terms of best practices, we used various other cities as kind of reference points for that.
So it's a total of 36 commission members, commission plus ad hoc commissioners, and one staff person, 37 collectively support team to make,
Yeah.
to appropriate up to $3 million.
Okay. Is there? Councilmember Trammell?
Did my colleague finish?
I believe so.
So you just said, Matt, you said 160,000. That's what the budget,
Sorry, $150,000.
150,000. And this is the money that's going to be spent on the delegates, all this other.
Yeah.
I like to have a list of all that. And also, I've asked for a list. I contacted one of the people that is on the PB or whatever, and I've asked for the list of what did the people choose in my district. And I didn't know if other council members had asked for it, and I have yet to get that. And they're already voting, so I don't know what they're voting. And then people are confused because everywhere I go, I was out there all weekend passing out my flyers for my meeting this Thursday, and they said, what are you going to do with your 3 million? I'm not getting 3 million. I'm supposed to get, I guess, 500,000, I think.
Correct.
Right. Okay, but what is that 500,000? And what has, I don't even know who the people are that picked the stuff. And the lady that I talked to, I didn't even know who she was. Then I had a couple people speaking to me that was at the poll, wherever they were at, the library, whatever, voting. And somebody said to them, they don't have no $3 million. Reva's not getting no 3 million. So he called me up and I told him, no, I don't have the 3 million. So it's, this is really, as I said a year ago and said recently, this is going to pit us against our citizens because they don't fully understand that we are not going to be funding all these projects or all these things that citizens have chosen. And I know in my district, they're not asking for a water fountain. I know they're not asking for a pitcher. I know they're asking for big things like paving. Just like now, this is what I'm going through right now. I'm hearing that a street in my 8th district, that the tree has uprooted the whole street and the citizen has fallen, that's not going to be paid. But I will have a conversation with Bobby on this because I have pictures. But so how we pick it and choosing? I mean, to pave a street or to do a sidewalk, that's more than $100,000 per se. So I want the list. Please, I'm asking. I don't know about my colleagues, but I'm asking you to get me my list of what the people have given to you all what they wanted, because now they're voting. And what are they voting on? I don't know. As a council person for my district, I'm the council person, not you, not you all. We are the council members up here, all 9 of us. We should be in the loop of what's going on in our district. I just got an email just now to come to a meeting on the 29th, which I'm not going to be able to for personal reasons, to come and listen to whatever that I'm not informed about, or I'm not on the same page as with them. I'm not on the same page because my people are not on the same page. So please get me that information and let's go from there. And also about all this pay, because now my people are going to start, and I don't blame them. If they're going to be holding these civic association meetings, they should be paid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slatz, I will ask again that every member have that list that was developed that folks are voting on in each of the districts. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will just need a motion that indicates a recommendation for this item to go to council.
Motion to forward to full council for approval, or I thought we were voting on it here.
No, this is just a recommendation. It will go before the full body at
All
a
right,
formal
so
council meeting.
Second.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 1, ordinance 2025-0512 to council with a recommendation to approve. Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Lynch, Ms. Trammell,
What are we voting on?
a recommendation to approve this paper.
For more discussion too?
What's that, ma'am?
Okay.
Ms. Trammell, what is your vote?
Aye.
Ms. Abu Bakr,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan,
Aye.
Chair Newell.
Aye.
That motion was approved.
Thank you. The next and really last item for us is a reporting from the standing committees. And so what we have, and Mr. Perkins, I think, has provided a list of, he has provided a document that shares a summary on reporting from each of the committees. Is that Will? Okay. So does every member have this? You do. And so if there is nothing additional to add to the summary report that Will has provided, then we can move on. But if you'd like to, and I'll touch base with each entity. Ms. Lynch, have you had opportunity to see the write-up, last month meeting summary, this month meeting plans for education and human services? Do you have anything else to add at this point?
I was just going to give an update from our stakeholder meeting that we had last Wednesday.
Okay. Councilmember Robertson, Finance and Economic Development, okay. Vice President Jordan, anything else for government ops?
No, I appreciate the write-up and just, yeah, if anyone has questions about GovOps last month or what's on the agenda for this month, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
And Councilmember Jones, anything additional for land use, housing, and transportation?
See the write-up?
It's on page 6, the very back. Oh,
Why don't we just
Okay.
read out our,
okay. Mr. Perkins, if you would come and share
Yes, ma'am.
with land use, housing, transportation.
Apologies, members.
Just-
My name is Will Perkins, Policy Manager for the Council. This previous Friday, emailed a memo to members I provided a printout to President Newbill today. So apologies for that. I'll work closely with the clerk's office to make sure it's included in your printed materials. But the memo includes a brief summary of your most recent meeting and then a review of your agenda for your meeting later this month.
Okay. Councilmember
Madam
Trammell?
President, did he just say, you did what now? You emailed me something on a Friday or Saturday?
This previous Friday. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not getting, I know I said earlier, I just had Rick, I can show you my phone. I got one email from you, something about, can't even remember, but anyway, I thought you give us a report. I thought usually when we come in here, we have a report. Because I think we praised you because you did, of all of our committees, the report of how you had everything organized, which was really good. And now I'm looking for it, but I don't see it. So we don't have it. So I'm not prepared to give a report because I thought you were going to do it. Then all we had to do is read what you had, summarized at my public safety meeting.
Ms. Jordan is helping me get a copy down to you. Unfortunately, yes. So I will coordinate with our clerk office to make sure we have everything printed in the future.
Well,
And
this,
Mr.
this from ma'am,
Say again. I'm
Ma'am.
sorry.
just. That's okay. I'm not giving a report. Thank you, Candace. Thank you for this. Thank you.
So, Ms. Perkins, so I want to say thank you, but I want to make sure, and you mentioned this, that you email, but that also you touch base with each council member who is chairing a committee to make sure they get the report in hand. And so, that then they can choose to add to it or whatever when they're in meeting. Yes. Councilmember Trammell?
You and all nine of us, we work our butts off all
Yes.
weekend, 7 days a week. Our job doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. Our job keeps going till 10. Mine goes until 12 o'clock at night with phone calls. And I don't mind that because I've told everybody to call me. But when I don't look at this phone every single day. I look at this text and phone calls that are coming in. Because sometimes, like right now, I don't know what in the world it is doing. I have no idea what this phone is doing. But anyway, if you could just, I don't know what time your job stops, but if you're going to email me, can you just text it to me so I can have it on my phone? And then when I go and I show people my phone, say, this is the meeting, this is what we just talked about. And they love that. They're not going to look. Some of my people don't even have emails because they don't have computers right now, can't afford it. But I'm just saying, please, get us the information. We got that many people up there on the third floor. We should be able to get everything and anything, all nine of us at one time, not just this, or it says time. I don't know, would you say something about connect me time or something like that? I'm like, and I even asked you, what does this mean? You said you can set up a time with me. I'm not here at City Hall every day. 99% of the time, I'm out in my district or at meetings or this or that. All weekend, I was passing out flyers by myself on Sunday and Friday. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You hear the challenge and opportunity to make sure that each member has not just by email, but have received, and really preferably to communicate directly. Text, phone, call, make sure each member has it and can share it, et cetera. So thank you. Councilmember Lynch.
Yep. Sorry, I was just going to give the update from the EHS stakeholder meeting. I didn't know if you were going to come back to me or not. And Will did do a great job staffing that meeting, helping us. So thank you, Will. Thank you for everything that you do for EHS. So committee members, along with a very diverse stakeholder group representing, we have representation from the GRCOC, the GRCOC board, folks who were doing case management on the ground. We had RPS our CFIT office was represented. We had Supervisor Jessica Snyder from Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors, as well as representatives from Henrico County and a number of faith-based organizations. So really great collective group of folks that attended a roundtable discussion to do an after-action review of our inclement weather shelter, as well as discuss kind of opportunities for improvement, as well as areas, some positive areas that they found in the system. Generally, I wanted to just thank and give some shine to Tiffany Ford and all of the members who came out from the administration who presented to us, and to my fellow committee members who took time out of their day to come, and Councilmember Robinson even joined us. It was really great to have everybody, all of our colleagues there. The 4 action items that came out, and this is why I wanted to flag these for you all, because I think they're really worthy of our attention. Biggest one was folks were adamant about having a plan and a budget in place for both single adults and families and children by May or June of this year. So we're not scrambling again for overflow shelter, for inclement weather shelter, because we know that 106 beds is not meeting the capacity needs of the city for cold weather sheltering. So that was a very big, action item that came. There was a lot of momentum for regional collaboration as well. That was another kind of note, is that, it became even more evident in that room that it was not a city problem, it was a regional problem, a shared regional issue and challenge for all of us to address. The second action item was for us to gather a list of volunteers and harness the power of caring adults in our community who want to volunteer and come around the Salvation Army, sort of like in the nod to a Friends of group. We have Friends of our parks and green spaces, and so there was a idea to kind of have that group around the Salvation Army, because there's a lot of very energized folks there that were willing to volunteer. And then thirdly, to have to broaden our list of stakeholder participants who were linked into the Community Resource Center. So, an acknowledgement that the list right now is relatively short for the partners that are linked in. Of course, when I say our Community Resource Center, I'm talking about the center that is co-located with the Salvation Army, that serves as a entry point for services, for some of our city services, that is co-located with the Salvation Army. And so there is a desire to have a more broader array of stakeholder participation for that center, and certainly that was a great approach. And then, of course, the fourth was really a call for us to do this again and to have more robust conversation with this kind of diverse group of stakeholders, bringing folks who had case management on the ground experience together with folks who had senior leader experience in our JIRA COC and homeless services system, as well as members of our administration and the counties around the table to continue the conversation, not only around inclement weather sheltering for the coming year, but how we improve the system overall. So it was a great meeting, and we will be sending out an after-action review with those to-do items either today, later. Actually, I'm sorry, I don't want to commit. Tomorrow or sometime this week. You'll see that email with the summary. But I wanted to flag those action items for the rest of the body, because these are issues that are important to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Couple of things in terms of the regional participation, especially this last season, is Henrico specifically worked to pick up folks from Marshall Plaza, GRTC, picked them up and took them to the library building that is vacant. And then also we had the Marshall Plaza location. So there was some enhanced regional collaboration, and certainly even greater potential for it. So thank you for that and for pulling the folks together. Council Member Robertson?
Yes, Madam Chair, I want to thank Mr. Perkins for his report. And I'm comfortable with not having to make a report the staff has prepared a decent report for all of the committees. And I'm pleased with us just having that attached to the agenda and satisfying the need for the report out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Mr. Perkins, I want to say thank you for the summaries for each of the committees, and certainly then the communication to each, as Ms. Trammell referenced, but they've been very helpful. I think, at least I've heard from the members, who are heading up the committees, they've been very helpful, so greatly appreciated. Thank you. With that,
Clarifying question?
yes.
Just clarifying question. So does that mean when these documents are uploaded to Legistar, everyone can see the reports for the committees? I just want to make sure it's still in the public record somewhere.
I'm going to make sure that this one is uploaded,
Okay.
and we can collaborate on the procedure moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I want to say thank you, certainly for your questions and queries during this meeting, but also during the budget work session. I believe it will help us get to the kind of budget that we are each looking for and needing for our city. So without further ado, because I'm capable of being long-winded, I'm trying to practice being briefer since all the questions came forward. Councilmember Robert, I'm practicing being briefer. Didn't say I was there yet. But I really do want to say thank you and really greatly appreciate all of the questions. With that, this meeting stands adjourned.